And if you wish to take refuge together, we could do that. Hopefully you're seeing that on your screen. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And the five promises: I commit to practicing reverence for life, to abstaining from killing. I commit to developing happiness through the practice of generosity, to abstaining from stealing. I commit to seeking true love, to abstaining from sexual harm and sexual aggression. I commit to loving speech and deep listening, to abstaining from lying. And I commit to being fully present and available in my life without the support of intoxicants or overindulgence. And as usually noted, those are in force, if you took them, from now until you wake up tomorrow or until you need to consciously put one aside. So I'm going to pin this to myself so that the share video is a little bit easier to work with. So most recently in Community Refuge, we were talking about the Vajrayana practice, the practice of the immediate way. And we were talking about last week taking refuge in challenging and turbulent times. And I thought, well, what's a Vajrayana refuge? And specifically, that led me to a contemplation of taking refuge in awake mind. So the traditional formulation is I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha, and the Buddha as a refuge is our example of being awake. But from the point of view of the immediate way, awake is available right now. And each of you have had taste and glimmers of awake. I love the question that we started with, and I loved your answers, an example of something good. And what I want to say is that if you were completely asleep, you would have been unable to answer that question. I don't know what good is. I have no experience of goodness. I have no experience of pleasure or delight or blessing, or that would be very asleep. So the fact that, trees, a cup of tea, fire, a phone call with your son, snuggling, Margaret, we didn't get yours. Do you want to jump in and say what yours would be?
Moonlight on the water.
Moonlight on the water, for me, chocolate, right? They're all good. They're all different, right? But they're all an experience of goodness. And so I want to talk about that ability to experience. And this is a very advanced Tibetan teaching that's also very simple. And in some ways, the simplicity of it is what makes it, a very advanced, high level teaching. Um, and if I could say it just in its most simple form, the experience you have of being available and open to whatever happens, that's good. That's what it's like to be awake, to be present, available, and open. Before any judgments, before any, separating it all out into I like this, I dislike that, um, this is healthy, this is unhealthy, this is the right way, this is the wrong, like all the ways that we divide it up, that all comes after that fundamental experience of just being available and open. If you don't have available and open, there is no experience. As far as we can tell, a block of wood does not experience goodness. We can have a philosophical argument about whether a block of wood, like a block of wood, a solid chunk of wood, you know, it doesn't look like much is getting in there, or a stone, I'm not saying they are not good. I'm saying that the experience of goodness, the conscious experience of goodness, does not appear to be present. So that availability and openness of letting the world in, letting the world touch you, letting your mind be open, penetrated, touched, caressed, shocked, um, by an experience. So often in the description of this quality of, and that's what it's like to be awake, to be available, you have no idea what's going to happen next. Something will happen, even if the something that happens appears to just be a continuation of the last moment with nothing special happening. Then nothing special is the something that's happening. Something is always happening, and our awareness, our ability to experience, our minds, our hearts, all kinds of ways to talk about it, are open and available. It's very simple. It's so simple we take it for granted. Oh, awake must be something special. Not really. Doesn't need to be. In fact, needing to make it special keeps you asleep. Just letting it be awake. So there are several, very classic teaching metaphors for this. One is like, this quality of being awake, taking refuge in being awake, in awakening itself, in just the experience of awakening. That's the Buddha, right? That's the Vajrayana Buddha, the experience of awakening. That is like, so I'll ask you to imagine, this is an imagination exercise. Imagine you are somewhere where you are completely relaxed, safe. I like it when it's beautiful. I mean, you can do this in a garbage dump, but I would prefer to do it in a beautiful spot. So I'm going to imagine safe, beautiful, and then there is a wide open sky. So imagine, for me, it's like the fourth week of May here in Nova Scotia when it's completely beautiful. And the sky is this beautiful sort of May blue. And the sun is up. It's not right in your eyes. It's just the sky is very bright and open. That's it. Just wide open. Anything can happen in that sky. An airplane could fly through. A raven could fly through. A trash truck could drive by. A little lower than the airplane, but it's going through, right? Anything can happen. So that's the wide open. The sky doesn't hold on to anything. Whatever passes through just passes through. But as it passes through, there's part of being awake that is recognizing, oh, plane, raven, trash truck, neighbor walking the dog, the scent of May flowers, right? The sound of the ocean, because I live near the ocean, coming through the air. Right? My cell phone going off, annoying me, because I don't really want to answer. I just want to enjoy the blue sky. Right? It doesn't always have to be pleasant. Right? It's just wide open, accommodating everything, full of experience, right? Available for experience. So that accommodating everything and a sense of being able to recognize as experience happens, that has a certain quality of, it's often described as brightness. And for those of you who are working, I think everybody on this is working with meditation is freedom. It's not dull mind. It's not awareness collapsed into a sleepy dullness. There's a sharpness of, like, I can tell the difference between the scent of roses in May and the trash truck going by, and the cell phone ringing, and the airplane noise, and it's immediate, it's effortless. It's just the mind, and it's nothing special. Those happen almost every day. Right? So it's wide open, accommodating, bright. There's nothing that actually stands between, in my imagination, as I'm thinking about this May morning, between me and appreciating the bright openness. It's not like I have to like step out of myself to watch the sky. There's nothing between me and the experience. It's just right there. Right? That nothing in between quality is sometimes called clarity. Like a raven flies by, and whether you call it a raven or something else, or maybe you think it's a crow or whatever, it's just, it's very clear, right? There's nothing between you and that experience. So open, clear, bright, which has that sort of knowing quality. And then all of the meditation texts say that awake, truly awake, has a slight bias towards warmth, towards compassion. It's not a strategy. It's not a morality. It's not a should or must or good versus evil. It's just a sense of connection with the world and a natural sense of, well, if I'm connected, then a simpatico quality, right? A sense of compassion or warmth, or there's lots of ways to express it. As soon as you express it, it sounds bigger than it is. It's just a natural warmth. And the thing is that this quality of awake, you're born with it. I was in the supermarket today buying something, and looked over, and in the next line over, there was a more or less young couple, and they had a baby in a baby carrier, right? Stuck in the cart, and the baby looked like, I couldn't tell what gender, so I'm just going to say baby. Baby looked maybe 2 months old, all snuggled up, right? Very sweet. That baby has this quality. Was born with it. Didn't have to work with it. Didn't have to strategize it, get coached about it. It's just mind is open. Baby's looking around, very curious, might not have any names, any language, any concepts, right? But awake, open, curious, and babies have opinions, right? So they have egos. It's not like they're completely without ego, but they have this quality, right? So you're born with it. I like to think when I wake up in the morning, it's literally what I'm trying to say is this is not a strategy. It's not something you have to try to do. It's just the way it is. When I open my eyes, and if there's something biologically wrong with your eyes, this might not be true. But if you have eyes that work relatively normally, you open your eyes, and the world of, the visual world is right there, whether I'm seeing the ceiling or my arm on the pillow, or I woke up looking out the window, or whatever I open, that's what's there. I don't wake up and see the pillow and go, I want it to be the ceiling. It just works. Like the eyes open, the senses work. Being 70 years old, I can tell the difference between the pillow and the ceiling. I'm not like the baby. right? I have a name for it, but it doesn't, the name doesn't matter. It's just right there. Open, clear, bright, knowable. And then I sit up and I look out the window, and that's what's there. And then maybe I'm looking for, a pair of socks and I find mismatched socks, and that's what's there, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever is presents itself, that's what my eyes will take in. So it's not biased and it just works naturally. I don't have to wake up and go, today I want my eyes to work the way they're designed to. Right? I might have to put on my glasses because I've gotten older, but that's, you know, with that exception, they just work. Same thing for my ears. I put in my hearing aids, right, which amplifies and then they work. They just work the way they're supposed to work, the way they were designed. So awake has a lot of this kind of almost taken for granted quality of just being open and available and ready and there. And in the Vajrayana, we take refuge in that. We have all kinds of names for it. One name for it, um, in Tibetan, the words would be translated as excellence from the very start, or excellence from beginningless, without a beginning, excellence that has always been there, beginningless excellence. Another word for it in Tibetan is um, unstained or pure. So it's like the sky. The sky is just sky. Doesn't matter if it's a cloud or roses or a dog barking or it's completely just sky, right? It's pure sky. So the word is often translated as pure, and then the first part of this expression is like the from the start. It's actually the first letter of the Tibetan alphabet. So it's sometimes translated as alpha pure, except alpha is not the first. That's the first letter of the Phoenician Greek alphabet. First letter of the Tibetan alphabet is Ka, Ka, Ka. Right? So it's Ka, pure. Right? So it's this quality of, oh, what if you wanted to really understand Vajrayana practice, we take refuge in the example of the Buddha, and we take refuge in the teachings. So these are some of the teachings. And we take refuge in the community. And then in terms of the Buddha, the inner Buddha, we take refuge in the experience of being awake. And now this becomes a pesky refuge question. When your mind gets stuck, or you're holding on to an opinion, or you feel cranky, or I want to be careful with this, depressed. That's not right. You feel mired, like in a swamp of pulling you down emotion, or you feel exalted in like this will never end emotion, right? Um, then you might want to remember, oh, wait a minute, the refuge is this open mind, heart, in which anything can happen. That's the mind of awake. So a refuge that Margaret and I repeat every day, which is this, and it's also the mind of uh, Dumene Zangpo or Kadak or Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche translated that as basic goodness. The thing about basic goodness is it also points at, yes, there's a wholesomeness to things, and it's helpful to be kind, and natural warmth is good, but underneath of it is this quality of taking refuge in awake. And so we repeat a refuge most mornings within the vast mandala of effortlessness is how it starts. I don't have to make an effort. This is just the way it is. Within the vast mandala of effortless, the three courts, The levels of this whole, the levels of this are displayed spontaneously. Uh, in this transmission, I'm going to go to the last line, in this transmission of fearlessness. And fearlessness in this context means I'm not afraid to be awake. I'm ready to be awake. Even in the saddest moments or the most exciting moments, I'm going to be awake. I take refuge.